everyone, it's Lisa from My Dream in Soap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. Now today's soap is another 100% natural soap. Now in my natural soap making journey there's been one colour that I've not been entirely happy with, and that's blue. I was getting a sort of muted greyish type of blue, especially if I didn't want to put it in a really strong way into my soap samples. So I spoke to Jo Hausler. Now those of you who've seen my previous natural soap will know about Jo. She's the lady who's written an ebook on all about how to colour your soaps using natural plant extracts. I'll put a link to that book in the description below. Anyway, Jo gave me some advice and I must admit I'm so super pleased with the blue colour that I've got now. In honour of my spectacular blue, I've actually handcrafted some individual cavity moulds with sea creatures on them to enhance my lovely blue soaps. So come on, let's go make some soaps.
I decided that I wanted some individual cavity moulds. Now I do have a few sort of standard oblong and square ones, but I wanted something more sculptural. I did have a look around, but I couldn't really find anything that I felt was sort of artistic enough. And also a lot of the moulds that I saw all had, say for example, 6 soaps, but then they would all be the same design. And I wanted to do like a little series of soaps for my moulds. So I had a go at making my own. Now I'm not going to do this as a tutorial because this is the first time that I've made individual moulds like this, and by no means was my process perfect, so I'm just going to show you what I did to actually produce these moulds. So I started off by making some little foam board boxes the size of a bar of soap that I wanted, and then I decided on my theme, and I decided on sea creatures. Now for my sea creatures I wanted something that would look good from looking down from the top of the soap, so therefore that ruled out things like doing fish in my soap. Now for the actual animals I didn't record that, literally because I just sort of sat in front of the TV in the evenings, and each evening over a series of nights I sculpted 2 of these sea creatures a night, and then just put them to the side and waited till the next night and then sculpted another 2. And all I'm doing here is just finishing off the soaps by adding some sort of extra little bits of scenery. And I actually want this scenery to obviously make some variation in the soaps. And I want it on the top and also going down the sides and the corners of the soaps as well. Now one of the things I had to consider, apart from what animals it was that I wanted to do, was to think about how they would be suitable to turn into soap moulds. So therefore things like, I don't know if you can see the hammerhead shark there, I modified the fin on that so it wasn't as tall and pointed as you would have in real life, because that would never be something that you could actually package and send out to people. So I was always trying to think about how they would turn out in soap as well. So as I said, I'm just finishing off by sticking on little individual bits of sculpting clay. I'll put a link to the type that I used in the description box below. And then I'm just going to sort of mould them and shape them to make sort of little rocks and things for the scenery for the soaps. Once I was happy with my designs, I did go over them with some silicone mould release liquid, just to make sure that the silicone didn't actually bond to the clay and then just end up with one big silicone clay blob mess type thing. And then to turn them into an actual mould that I can use, I just made a tray to sit the individual mould forms in. And I just did this in exactly the same way as I would make like a little slab mould out of that sort of plastic. I think they call it Corex plastic or something. So I've just literally made that into sort of a slab mould shape. And now I'm just covering the bottom completely with some double-sided tape. Now the double-sided tape will be fine. It doesn't matter that some of it will be left exposed when the silicone goes onto it. That won't have any effect at all. I just want a good base to make sure that these little moulds are held firmly for when I cover them in silicone. And then it was just a simple case of taking each of the individual moulds that I'd made and sticking them to the double-sided tape, just making sure I got enough of a gap. I tend to like sort of like a 5mm gap around any sort of moulds and things that I do. So just being careful how I position them so that I have enough silicone between each item and the edge of the mould. And I don't want too much, because if you have an awful lot of silicone, it makes it very difficult to unmould things because you just don't get any flexibility. So then it was just a case of completing them like you've seen several times before if you've seen my videos where I make some embed moulds. I've just mixed up my silicone. This silicone does have a little bit of blue silicone colourant in it. And then I'm just pouring that over the mould forms that I've made. And once I'm happy with the depth that I've got on those moulds, I'm just going to leave that to set up for a couple of hours. So once my silicone was all set, I've then just pushed out the little boxes that I've made. And as you can see here, this is one of the things that perhaps maybe didn't go as to plan as I would have liked, because the grip of the silicone is stronger than the grip that the plaster had on the foam board. So therefore, if I did something like this again, I need to find a way perhaps of improving that process. For me, it didn't really matter because I got my mould out of it. I didn't want to reuse these again, so this was okay. But if I did want to reproduce these, then obviously I would need to find a way of making sure that the little design stayed on the little box. However, because I'd used the silicone release liquid, those little bits of plaster literally lifted out of the silicone really nice and easily. It wasn't a problem to get those out separately. And then once I got all the little bits of plaster out, I then went around the mould and just trimmed carefully around any areas that were maybe a little bit rough, or perhaps there were any sort of blockages that would have stopped the flow of batter going in. And then with all that done, I had my mould and I could test it by making some soaps. Now this soap is going to be another natural soap, so for my blue sea I'm going to use indigo powder, and I've already dispersed that in some oil. I did try putting it in my lye and I did test it also in some water, but I found when I added it using water it actually gave me some glycerin rivers, so oil was the way to go for me. I'm also going to be using some madder root, again dispersed in some oil, and I've sieved this as well to get any little bits out. I'm using some red clay, and I'm finding when you use that quite strong it goes brown rather than red. And then finally some activated charcoal. Now I want to do the sea creatures separately so I can use all the different colours that I need. So I'm just mixing up a very small amount of soap batter that I'll use to fill in all those shapes that I've made in the moulds. I'm fragrancing the soap with bergamot essential oil. So I'm just going to weigh out the amount that I need for this little bit of soap that I've got. This is a really tiny little bit of soap, so I'm just going to pop the essential oil in now rather than splitting it up for the individual colours and then trying to apportion teeny-weeny little bits out. As you can see, I've just mixed up those natural colourants, and for the activated charcoal I really just want quite a very light grey for my hammerhead shark and my stingray, so I'm not going to add very much of that black at all. And then it was a case of just taking those colours and gradually building up the sculptures in the soap.
There's some stains on your photo, little cracks on your rusty frame, stuck in the mud, oh, but
Once I was happy, I then spent a little bit of time going over the sea creatures and just smoothing everything off and scraping off any excess, so none of the colouring from the creatures went into the sea area that I'm going to pour. And then for my beautiful blue, I'm going to do it as an ombre pour because I want it sort of lighter around the creatures so we can see them nice and clearly, but then I want it to get darker and darker lower down the soap so it looks like the sea's getting deeper. So I've split my remaining batter out and we're going to have one a very, very pale blue and another one quite a dark blue. I have actually deliberately made more soap that I'm going to need to fill my mould up because at the side I'm also making some little individual sample soaps as well. So here I'm just starting off with my ombre pour with that very light colour. And then I'll add more of the dark blue to depict the sea deepening towards the bottom of the soap. And once I'd finished the pour, I just tidied up the mould, covered it over and then sea-popped it in the oven overnight. So here we are the next day. No cutting, just unmoulding. And I'm trying to be really careful with these. I've got to gently push them out of the mould because I don't want to damage any of those sculptures on the top. But they actually popped out really nicely and I was so chuffed with them. So here's Krusty the Crab. Oh, it's Lawrence the Lobster. I think I actually did a little joyful squeal when I saw that one. Terry the Turtle with his little friendly starfish. Hubert the Hammerhead. Stanley the Stingray. Oh, bonus points for anyone who can remember what's left to pop out. It's Ollie the Octopus. Oh, look at him, he's so cute. Oh my goodness me, I'm so chuffed with those. I just really love them. I really enjoyed the whole process. I loved sculpting the little sea creatures and making the moulds, and I'm just so chuffed with the results, and it's really inspired me to make more series of moulds like these. Now as I'm sitting here editing this video, these soaps are about a month old and I haven't taken any final pictures of them yet, so I'm just going to pop and go and take some and then we'll have a look and see what they look like today. Okay, I'm back. So here they are today, and as you can see the colours have held up really well and the fragrance is still strong as well, so I'm really pleased with those. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you like the soap. If you have, it would be great if you left me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see what I'm doing in the future, why not subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching everyone, happy soaping!